and the livestock. Horses were just absolutely
Freaking out.
Oh, yeah, it was nuts. That and cows that weren't doing such a good job about surviving. You've been tracking on wild horses on the Salt River. What's up with that on your update?
I contacted Simone Netherland through the Salt River Wild Horse Management Group and explained very carefully to the representative on the phone that we would like to have a discussion with her in studio. And I pointed out that while she is an absolute horse advocate and horses in all places, I said, we, on the other hand, while respecting the right of horses to be at certain places, are looking for limited numbers of them. We invited her to come on air and to be here in studio with us, and I've got crickets in return. I have not
crickets.
Have heard nothing. So the invite is out there, Ms. Simone. Certainly, we know we will have a different position than you do. I understand the passion and advocacy that she represents for their group.
Did you explain horse in a can?
I did mention that, yes, we had consumed horse meat while on the air at one point in time. But I think the biggest thing is that if you look at it, I have some real objections because she went evidently up into Salt Lake City for the wild horse.
Oh, boy, yeah. We have a after-action conference called Tuesday at
if you want to sit in and listen on the bureaucratic nightmare, be my guest. However, the pet term that the wild horse lovers are using now is called welfare ranchers, and they are the ones who are advocating for the removal of horses, and that is the only group that's supposedly advocating for removal of horses. That's wrong. It is not just that. Any conservationist worth their salt, and as strange as it may seem, the Audubon Society, the Sierra Club, and all the conservation groups all agree with one thing. Numbers of horses need to be reduced for a healthy herd. It is the only ungulate.
That's coming out of the Sierra Club?
That came out of the Sierra Club,
What?
and it came out of the Audubon Society. Yeah. Yep.
Well, that's true for anything: deer, elk, mountain goat,
People.
whatever, antelope.
The little Salt River Horse Group is trying to do fertility drug shots to the mares.
Well, Winchester's developed that particular
Yes,
therapy,
they have. Yes, they have. I know.
along with Ruger.
Remington.
But see, the problem is that it's number one, it's not a process that's complete, and number two, they have this group, and I saw pictures on their website. They've got probably 50, 60 people, maybe even up to 100, who are just in love with seeing horses. This is the new modern zoo where it's in the quote-unquote wild, and people can see nature up close and personal. Number one, horses are big animals, and number two, they can turn on you in a heartbeat and do something real stupid. Their brain size is in relationship to the size of their head is very limited. I have been known to be kicked, I've been bucked, I've been thrown, and I've been bit by horses. I still love them. I think they're awfully cool animals, and they're capable of doing a whole lot of good things, but they are still, just as you say, an animal. As with all animals, they need to be controlled. What's the difference between having shelters for dogs where they are euthanized and having one for a horse, other than it is a bigger animal?
They're not euthanized.
I know they're not.
We have a rule.
Yeah, and that's the problem. The problem is they propagate just like any other of the species we know does, and there's too many of them. That was the whole reason for that action up in Salt Lake last week.
Yeah, I don't know how that's going to turn out. I don't know if there's any hair growing on any of the programs, the suggestions that were brought forth, but
Well, we
their intentions were well founded.
Yeah, we're having one here in Arizona right now, and it's on the wild horse management, Heber Wild Horse Management area. Miss Simone is on that panel as well. She's able to get her nose into, and her nose is under the tent of every single horse action that's going on. She is de facto the advocate for it. But I have a real problem with people who are terming anybody who works the land as a welfare rancher. If you ever watch a rancher and what they do, and if you look at all the water holes they scrape out and all the paperwork they have to go through on their allotments, which, yes, they pay for, compared to people who utilize the land and don't put back a penny.
Right.
I'm sorry, I have a real problem with your terming anybody who works the land as hard as they have. They are the true stewards and have been for decades and
That's right.
decades.
That's right.
Now, you go back to the 1900s when we were fresh out of here. Yes, sometimes ranchers overgrazed. You can't do that now. They have range monitoring. They had forage installation looks at.
Yeah, ask
they do
Clyde
all
Bundy.
that. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So there's a whole series of issues that people need to start taking a long, hard look at, and it's all based on education. People think this is wonderful. It's a lovey, touchy, feely thing,
No.
and it's mostly feminine based. I'm sorry,
it's
that's
fashionable.
sexist. Call me.
It's
Yeah.
fashionable.
It is. Yeah,
It's a new thing.
Well, I mean, the reality, who doesn't like a horse?
Of course.
yeah.
Come on.
A horse, of course.
Of course.
Yeah. Well, the problem is, when you have your nose under the tent like she does, most of the time your butt's hanging out. So.
Well, here's a weird one because I didn't even think about this. A couple times a weekend, you hear one of the deputies at Saguaro Lake saying, I've got to go over to Butcher Jones and clear out the horses.
Yeah.
And you
Thank
have
you.
families there all weekend. I mean, not at night because you don't camp, but they're still there recreating during the day with their kids, trying to do a barbecue. And all of a sudden, here comes 20, 30, 40 horses walking through. Somebody's going to get hurt. And
The
then
kids
the
will.
other thing,
Eventually, it's going to happen.
the other thing is the horse flies that we were talking about offline.
Well,
They're everywhere.
that's a built-in sanitation problem at Butcher Jones.
True, but here I am on my boat in the middle of the lake being swarmed by horse flies. So
Butcher Jones Cove will be the site of an incident at some point in time. You get a stallion during breeding season who's got an attitude, you watch out if you're. And as the numbers increase, and they will, they're claiming they're increasing only 12% a year, which means 50% every 4 years, which is half the real number. But regardless of all that,
And the head
50%
count was
increase.
430 on the Salt River.
430 in
Yeah.
the Salt River Basin.
that's a lot of horses.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's
And,
gonna
and
get
there'll be
worse.
more.
Yeah.
Yep, 4 years. Well, we were looking at it 4 years ago when all of those came up, and it was only a couple hundred. Now it's 400. In 4 more years, it'll be 800.
Yep.
And if you do sterilization, you can't do sterilization, but if you do the vaccination, you have to do it repeatedly. It's not something that's long lasting.
That's a bonehead left wing idea. I mean,
it's not
just-
practical, and it's not a solution.
It's not.
Well, the other thing that happened, I think it was last month, because I'm in the station listening to the radio, there was a group of horses, a small group, but they had wandered into Fountain Hills and got
Wonderful.
caught in people's backyards
Yep.
and couldn't get out. So they had to wrangle them up out of the backyards of these people and get them back across the highway safely and back over into the Salt River side. Yeah. You don't even think about that.
I saw it at the Fort McDowell Casino. When Donnie and I met to
Yeah.
head up for the road, there was somebody laying on the ground sleeping it off. It looked like, or appeared to. He was breathing. We knew that. But there was a
that
horse.
would
and-
be an indigenous aborigine,
Yeah,
most likely.
There was a mare and her foal who had crossed the highway right there along the road that goes into the Fort McDowell Casino. How are they going to get back on the other side? Because they're not supposed to be on this side. They're supposed to be on the other side. There's going to be accidents. It's just a fact.
Well, we're already having them. You encountered the F-250 up on by Forest Lakes. Got
By
popped.
Forest Lake. With a brain the size of a pea. And they are capable of really hurting you.
It's an elk without horns.
No, elk are small. They're 2/3 the size only.
Yeah.
They're 1,200
Weight
pounds.
wise, yeah.
1,200 pounds of dumb with an attitude sometimes.